I never thought of myself as the kind of man who had to question his own life. You work, you pay your bills, you come home to the woman you love, and the world keeps turning. Simple, steady, or at least that is how it is supposed to be. I never used to wonder where my wife was going when she said she was meeting her friends. Never looked twice when she was up late on her phone, laughing at messages she never shared. I trusted her. Turns out I was a damn fool. It started with a phone call. Not from my wife, no. She never would have had the guts. It was her friend, Margaret, a quiet woman, the kind who never got involved in drama, who stayed in her own lane. So when her name popped up on my phone screen, I hesitated. Margaret and I were not close. Hell, we had barely had more than a handful of conversations over the years. There was no reason she should have been calling me. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. But something in my gut told me to answer. And the second I did, I knew something was wrong. She did not say hello, did not ask how I was. Her voice was low, shaky, like she hated the words she was about to say, but had no choice but to say them. "You need to hear this," she said. I sat up straighter. "What are you talking about?" She hesitated, and the pause was heavy. The kind that told me I was about to hear something I could never unhear. Then she spoke, just 2 words. I caught them. Everything inside me froze. I did not have to ask who she meant. "My husband," Margaret continued, her voice raw. "Your wife." I sat back in my chair, my mind empty, my heart pounding in my ears. "They thought no one would find out," she said, bitterness creeping into her tone. But I saw them. I heard them. And I refused to be the only one suffering for it. Suffering. Not anger. Not disgust. Suffering. The word sat there in my chest, but I was not sure I felt it yet. I did not feel much of anything. Not at first. Margaret kept talking, probably sensing my silence. Maybe she thought I needed convincing. I did not want to believe it either, she said, her voice cracking. But I saw them with my own eyes. In my house. She let out a shaky breath. They were laughing. Comfortable, like they had been doing this for a long time. And that was when the rage hit. Not grief, not pain, rage. It started slow, just a heat in my chest. Then it spread, boiling through my veins like wildfire. I gritted my teeth, gripping my phone so hard it should have cracked in my hand. "Where are they now?" My voice was too calm. Margaret hesitated. Maybe she was debating whether she should even tell me. But she must have known. There was no putting this genie back in the bottle. "Home," she finally whispered. Both of them, acting normal, like nothing happened. Like nothing happened. That was it. I hung up without another word. I was out of my chair, moving on instinct, my body working faster than my brain. I grabbed my keys, shoved my feet into my boots, and was out the door before I even had time to think about what I was doing. The drive home was a blur. My mind was not making sense of anything. It was just flashing through moments, little conversations, small excuses, all the tiny lies I had ignored. Go to Margaret's for a little while, my wife had told me just last week, kissing my cheek on the way out the door. Had she been with him that night? "Margaret and David are having a rough time," she had mentioned a month ago, shaking her head. Was that guilt? All those little moments I had brushed off, they piled up now, twisting into something ugly. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel. I was not going to sit around and let her explain her way out of this. She did not deserve that chance. She had no idea what was coming. I pulled into the driveway, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The lights were on. She was home, sitting inside that house, the house I had worked my ass off for, the house we had built a life in, like she had not spent her days sneaking around behind my back. I exhaled, sharp and slow, then stepped out of the car. The front door was unlocked. I pushed it open and walked inside, quiet as a shadow. And there she was, sitting on the couch, her legs curled under her, flipping through a damn magazine. Like nothing had changed. She glanced up, saw me, and smiled. Smiled. "You were home early," she said, flipping a page. Casual, like she was not lying through her teeth. I just stood there, staring at her, trying to see the woman I used to know. But all I could see was him. His hands on her. His lips where only mine should have been. She must have noticed something in my expression because that fake little smile faded. Her brow furrowed slightly. "What?" She asked, her voice careful now. She was testing me, trying to figure out if I knew. And just that alone sent a fresh wave of fury through me. I took a breath, stepping further into the room. You tell me. She blinked, tilting her head. I did not know what you were talking about. Liar. I saw it now. The way her fingers twitched slightly. The way she shifted just a little, like she was ready to bolt if things went south. Ellen's words rang in my head. They were laughing. Comfortable. Like they had been doing this for a long time. How long? Months? Years? Had I ever truly known the woman sitting in front of me? My jaw clenched. I exhaled sharp and slow. Ellen called me. That was all I had to say. I watched the blood drain from her face in real time. She gripped the magazine tighter, her fingers digging into the paper. Ellen, she repeated, voice thin, weak. Then she tried to recover. She let out a nervous chuckle, shaking her head. I did not know why she would. Do not. The word cut through the air like a blade, sharp and final. She flinched. Good. I was not in the mood for games. I crossed my arms, stared her down. How long? She licked her lips, stalling, scrambling for the right answer. Baby, do not call me that. She swallowed hard. I swear it did not mean anything. I let out a bitter laugh. That is the best you have. My nails dug into my palms. I was not going to scream. I was not going to throw things. I was just going to walk away. I turned, grabbed my jacket, and headed for the door. She sat up straighter, panic flashing in her eyes. Where are you going? I did not answer. She pushed up from the couch, stepping toward me like she thought she could stop me. Please, can we talk about this? I turned my head just enough to look at her. Now you want to talk? A sharp exhale left my lips, carrying the last shred of patience I had left. You should have thought about that before you decided to spread your legs for him. Her face crumpled, her lips trembling like she was about to cry, but I did not feel even a flicker of sympathy. I reached for the door handle. I needed air. I needed distance. Because if I stayed in that house 1 second longer, I was not sure what I would do. And neither was she. The door slammed behind me, rattling the walls, the sound vibrating through my bones. It still did not feel like enough. Nothing did. The cold air hit me like a slap, but it barely registered. My mind was stuck in that house, stuck in that moment, stuck in her voice and her excuses. It did not mean anything. I was not thinking. Can we talk about this? Talk. What the hell was there to talk about? I stormed down the driveway, each step heavier than the last, my fists clenched so tight the skin over my knuckles stretched thin. I had no idea where I was going, just that I needed to go, to get away from her before I did something I would regret. I made it to the sidewalk, sucking in deep breaths that did nothing to settle the storm inside me. The image of her sitting on that couch, looking at me like she was the victim, replayed in my mind over and over again, twisting the knife deeper. And then there was him, David, the bastard who had shaken my hand, who had stood next to me at barbecues, laughing, drinking my beer, asking me how work was going, pretending to give a damn about my life while he was screwing my wife behind my back. The rage in my chest coiled tighter, hotter. I turned the corner, boots grinding against the pavement. My brain was screaming at me to do something, anything. Because right now, they were inside their homes, pretending like nothing had happened. She was probably pacing the living room, wondering what I was going to do next. And he was probably stretched out on his damn couch, maybe even sitting next to Margaret, acting like a faithful husband. Like he had not just burned his whole life to the ground. Like he had not just burned mine. I did not realize where I was going until I was already there. David's house. It looked just the same as it always did. Porch light glowing, 2 cars parked neatly in the driveway, curtains drawn. From the outside, it was perfect. A cozy little home. A goddamn lie. I stood there for a long moment, breathing hard, my pulse pounding in my ears. I wanted to walk up to that door and knock. No, I wanted to pound on it, drag his sorry ass outside, and make him regret every choice that led him here. But I didn't, because as much as I wanted to break something, break him, I was not going to be the one who lost everything tonight. No, I wanted him to feel it. I wanted him to know that I knew. I wanted him to understand that the life he thought he had was already crumbling beneath his feet. So instead of walking up to his door, I pulled out my phone. My fingers trembled as I unlocked it, scrolling through my contacts until I found his name. David. I stared at it for a second. Then I pressed call. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Then finally, "Hey man." David's voice came through smooth, casual, completely unaware of the firestorm waiting for him on the other end. "What's up?" I did not answer right away. I just listened to his voice, picturing his smug face, imagining him stretched out, thinking everything was fine. But it was not fine, and he was about to find out just how badly he had screwed up. "You busy?" I asked, my voice steady. Too steady. There was a pause. A no. What? I'll let the silence stretch, long enough for him to start feeling uncomfortable. Then finally, "I know." Another pause. Longer this time. Then a nervous chuckle. "Know what?" I clenched my jaw, my grip tightening around the phone. "You know exactly what," I said. "Do not insult me by pretending otherwise." David exhaled sharply on the other end, his fake confidence starting to crack. "Look, man, I do not." "You do not what?" I cut him off, my voice dropping lower, sharper. "You do not sleep with your best friend's wife? You do not betray the one guy who actually trusted you? You do not what, David?" Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Then, finally, a weak, pathetic excuse. "It was not supposed to happen like this." I laughed. A dark, humorless sound. "Oh, really? How was it supposed to happen, David?" More silence. I could hear his breathing, fast and uneven, like a man who had just realized the ground beneath him was about to give way. "Does Margaret know?" he asked, his voice quieter now. I gritted my teeth. "Yeah," I said. "She knows. She's the one who told me." A sharp inhale on the other end. Oh, like he had just been caught sneaking an extra beer at a party. Like this was nothing. Like this was something he could still brush under the rug. I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing myself to stay calm. But it was getting harder with every second. "You're going to regret this," I said finally. My voice was not loud. It was not even angry. It was worse, because I was not yelling. I was not threatening, but I was promising something. And I was not a man who made empty promises. David must have realized that, because when he finally spoke, his voice shook just a little. "Look, man." I hung up. I stood there, staring at my phone, my breath coming hard and fast. And then, slowly, a bitter smile crept onto my lips. Because now, the real fun was about to begin. I stayed there in the dark, gripping my phone like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. The call was over, but its weight still pressed down on my chest. David had nothing to say. No denial, no excuses, no attempt to twist it into a misunderstanding. Because he knew exactly what he had done. And now he knew that I knew. I slid my phone back into my pocket, breath fogging in the cold air. My fists clenched and unclenched at my sides, itching for something to break. But I was not going to give in to that impulse. Not yet. No, I was not finished with him. Or her. I turned and walked back toward the house, my house. The place where I had spent years building a life, where I had kissed her goodnight, where I had believed we were something real. But it was never real. It was a lie, and I was done pretending. The front door was still unlocked, just like I had left it. I stepped inside, the warmth of the house hitting me like a wall, but it did not feel comforting. It felt wrong. She was still there, sitting on the edge of the couch, her legs bouncing, hands twisting in her lap. The magazine she had been flipping through earlier was now a crumpled mess on the coffee table. She looked up the second she heard me. Shot to her feet. "Where did you go?" I did not answer. I just stared at her, and I saw it. The change in her expression. That fake confidence she had put on earlier. The little smirk, the forced excuses. Gone. All that was left was panic. I walked right past her, straight to the liquor cabinet, pulled out a bottle of whiskey, and poured myself a drink. She took a hesitant step forward. "Babe, do not." I took a slow sip, letting the burns settle in my chest before setting the glass down. My hands were steady, even though my pulse was pounding. "You do not get to call me that anymore." Her throat bobbed, her gaze darting toward the door like she was considering running. I almost wished she would. "Did you call him?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I scoffed. "Yeah, I called him." I turned to face her fully, crossing my arms over my chest. He did not have much to say. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. "Tell me something," I said, tilting my head. When was the last time you were actually faithful to me? Or has this been going on for so long you do not even remember? She blinked rapidly, gripping the hem of her sweater like it was some kind of lifeline. It was not. She hesitated, then shook her head. I do not know. A sharp, bitter laugh left my throat. You do not know? She swallowed. Her voice cracked, and she rubbed her temples like this was too much for her to handle. I did not plan this, okay? It just happened. That was it. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I slammed my fist against the counter. The sound was like a gunshot in the silence. She flinched hard, her breath coming in shallow, panicked bursts. Bullshit, I growled. This was not some accident. This was not a one-time mistake. This was a choice. Her fingers curled into fists, her shoulders shaking. I did not mean to hurt you. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Oh, that makes it so much better. I took a step closer, forcing her to look at me. When you were lying next to him, did you think about me at all? My voice was eerily calm now. When you snuck around behind my back, when you smiled in my face like nothing was wrong, did you ever feel anything? She opened her mouth, then closed it, and that was all I needed to know. I exhaled, stepping back. I was not wasting another second listening to her try to justify what she had done. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. She stiffened. What are you doing? I did not answer. I just tapped the screen, then press call. It rang once, twice. Then Ellen picked up. Hey, she said, her voice tired. Did you talk to him? I kept my eyes locked on my wife as I answered. Yeah, I said. And now, I think it is time we both do what needs to be done. Her face drained of color. Wait. I ended the call. And then, without another word, I walked out of the room. I walked upstairs, my boots heavy against the hardwood floor. The whole house felt different now. Colder. Empty. Like the walls themselves had pulled away from me. I had lived here for years. I had filled it with memories, with laughter, with moments that I thought meant something. But it was all a lie, and I was done living in a house built on betrayal. Behind me, I heard her footsteps, hesitant, shaky. What are you doing? She asked, her voice smaller now. Weaker. I did not answer. I stepped into our bedroom. No, my bedroom now. The place where I had once felt safe, where I had kissed her goodnight, where we had shared secrets under the covers. I looked at the bed, the neatly arranged pillows, the framed photos on the dresser. It all looked the same, but now it was just a crime scene. She stopped in the doorway, wrapping her arms around herself. Can we just talk? I turned to look at her, really look at her. Messy hair, wide, desperate eyes, smudged mascara. She looked small, like a child caught sneaking out past curfew. But she was not some innocent kid who broke a rule. She was a grown woman who had wrecked her own life. I let out a slow breath and turned back to the closet. I reached up, grabbed a suitcase, and threw it onto the bed. Her breath hitched. Wait. I did not wait. I started pulling clothes off hangers, tossing them inside without care. She rushed forward, grabbing my arm. Please. I jerked away from her touch like it burned. Do not. Her eyes shimmered with tears, like I was supposed to feel bad for her. Where am I supposed to go? She whispered. I let out a hollow laugh. Not my problem. She opened her mouth, ready to argue, then shut it again. I yanked open drawers, shoving more of her things inside the suitcase. It was mechanical now, almost therapeutic. Like with every item I packed, I was removing another piece of the life I thought I had. You cannot just kick me out, she finally snapped, her voice sharp. I stopped, turned to face her. Watch me. She shook her head, hands clenching into fists. This is my home, too. I scoffed. Yeah? Funny. You did not seem to care about that when you were sneaking around with David. She flinched at his name. Her whole body caved inward. It was not like that, she whispered. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, then what was it like? She opened her mouth, then shut it. Because she knew. There was nothing she could say to make it better. Nothing that could undo the fact that she had taken our life and ripped it to shreds for something cheap, meaningless. I zipped up the suitcase and shoved it toward her. Take it. She did not move. Then, finally, she reached for the handle, knuckles white. And for the first time since this started, she looked afraid. Not afraid of me. Afraid of what was coming next. I crossed my arms. You have 10 minutes. Her head snapped up. What? 10 minutes to get out of my house, I said flatly. Or I start throwing the rest of your shit onto the front lawn. Her mouth fell open. You were serious. I did not answer, because we both knew I was. I followed her, my steps slow and deliberate. I wanted to see this. I wanted to watch her walk out of my life. She reached the front door and hesitated, her fingers tightening around the suitcase handle. One last chance to turn back. One final moment to try and fix this. But there was nothing left to fix. I stepped past her and pulled the door open myself. Cold night air rushed in, sweeping through the house like it was cleansing it of her presence. She turned to face me, her bottom lip trembling. What happens now? I tilted my head, exhaling slowly. Now, my voice was steady even, almost bored. Now, you go figure out what to do with yourself. I met her eyes, letting the finality of my words sink in. And I moved the hell on. She swallowed hard. I never wanted this. I arched an eyebrow. Could have fooled me. She blinked rapidly, jaw tightening. And then, for the first time all night, I saw something else in her eyes. Anger. Like I was the bad guy. Like I had done this. It was almost laughable. I let out a slow breath and gestured toward the driveway. Your time's up. She hesitated. Then, finally, she stepped outside. I did not wait for her to turn back. I did not wait for some dramatic goodbye. I just gripped the door handle and slammed it shut. The sound echoed through the house, rattling the windows, vibrating through my bones. And for the first time all night, I felt something that almost resembled peace. Because she was gone, and I was finally free. The door slammed shut behind her, shaking the walls, the sound cutting through the silence like a gunshot. I stood there for a long moment, my breath steady, my fingers still curled around the doorknob, the cold metal biting into my palm. She was gone, and yet the air in the house still smelled like her shampoo, like the candles she used to light every evening, like the perfume she probably wore for him. I let out a slow breath, my grip loosening. This was my house now, my life, without her in it. I turned and walked through the house, the weight of it pressing down on me. Every step felt heavier than the last, like the walls themselves were reminding me of everything I had lost. Or maybe everything I had never really had. The living room was still a mess, her crumpled magazine on the coffee table, a half-full glass of wine sitting next to it. I stared at it for a second, then grabbed the glass and dumped it down the sink. The deep red liquid swirled away, disappearing just as quickly as the life I thought I had with her. I wiped my hands on my jeans, exhaling sharply. She was probably sitting in her car right now, hands gripping the wheel, trying to figure out where the hell to go. Maybe she would call David. Maybe she would cry to him, tell him how mean I had been, how unfair this all was. Or maybe she would sit in the driveway for a while, hoping I would change my mind. She was wasting her time. I was not that guy anymore. Not anymore. My phone buzzed in my pocket. For a second, I thought it might be her one last pathetic attempt at damage control. But when I pulled it out, I saw Ellen's name on the screen. I swiped to answer. Yeah. I straightened slightly. You kick him out? Damn right I did. Her voice had an edge to it now. Packed his shit, threw it on the porch, and told him he had 5 minutes before I set it on fire. A small, humorless smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. Wish I had thought of that. She allowed a short laugh, but there was no real joy in it. I thought I would feel better. I thought I would feel, I do not know, stronger. But I just feel like I wasted years of my life on a man who never really gave a damn. I ran a hand through my hair, exhaling. Yeah. Silence stretched between us, heavy but not uncomfortable. Then Ellen cleared her throat. So what now? Good question. What the hell did I do now? Start over? Burn everything to the ground and rebuild? Pretend this never happened and just move on? I had no idea. But one thing was certain. They were not getting away with this. You still want revenge? I asked, my voice low. Ellen let out a sharp breath. More than anything. A slow, dark smile spread across my lips. Good, I said. Then let's ruin them. I sat on the edge of my bed, the weight of the past few hours pressing down on me like a storm cloud ready to burst. The house was quiet now, but it was not a peaceful quiet. It was the kind of silence that came after destruction. when the dust had not quite settled, when you were left staring at the wreckage, wondering how the hell you let it get this bad. The whiskey bottle on the nightstand was half empty. I had not even realized how much I had been drinking, but did not matter. The burn was not enough to drown out the thoughts spinning through my head. Ellen's words echoed in my mind. So what now? Revenge. That was what came next. I was not the kind of guy who let things go. I was not going to be the sad bastard who sat around licking his wounds while the two of them moved on, acting like nothing had happened. No, they were going to feel this. They were going to pay. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I grabbed it, glancing at the screen. A text from Ellen. He's calling me nonstop. Keeps saying we can fix this. I scoffed, shaking my head. Of course, Mike was already trying to weasel his way out of it. That man had spent his whole life avoiding consequences. Not this time. I typed back, "Do not answer. Let him sweat." Her response came almost instantly. "Already ahead of you." I smirked. At least I was not in this alone. Ellen had just as much reason to want payback as I did. Maybe even more. She had trusted Mike. She had built a life with him, and he had tossed it away for a cheap thrill with my wife. Ex-wife. Or soon-to-be, anyway. I grabbed the whiskey bottle from the nightstand, took another swig, and leaned back against the headboard. My mind was already working, piecing together the best way to make them suffer. Destroying a marriage? That was easy. Destroying them, their reputations, their comfort, their future. That was going to take a little more effort, and I was more than willing to put in the work. The next morning, I woke up early. The whiskey still burned in my veins, but my head was clear. I had a plan. The first step? Making sure everyone knew exactly what kind of people they were. I got out of bed, grabbed my laptop, and started typing. Mike was a respected guy. At least he had been. People liked him. They trusted him. He was the kind of guy who could sell a car with no engine and make you think he got a good deal. That was about to change. I pulled up my social media accounts. Then Ellen's. We had both agreed this was not going to be some quiet, private breakup. This was war. The first post was simple. To everyone who thought they knew Mike and her name. Turns out, we did not know them at all. While I was working, building a life with my wife, she was sneaking around with her best friend's husband. While Ellen was trusting her husband, he was lying to her face. Some people are not who they pretend to be. I attached a photo, one that Ellen had taken after she caught them. It was not explicit, but it was enough. Just the two of them, standing too close, caught in a moment where they thought no one was watching. I hit post, and then I waited. It did not take long. The comments started flooding in almost immediately. Holy shit, is this real? I cannot believe this. I thought they were happy. Damn, that is low. And then the messages started rolling in. Friends, family, people who had been at our wedding, at our barbecues, people who had smiled at us like we were the perfect couple. Now, they all wanted to know what the hell happened. I did not respond. I did not need to, because the damage was already done. Mike and my wife, no, I needed to stop calling her that. My ex were not just going to lose their reputations. They were going to lose everything. Ellen had already frozen the joint bank account she shared with Mike. She was a smart woman. She had been handling their finances for years. She knew exactly which buttons to press to make sure he had nothing left when she was done with him. Me? I did not share finances with my ex, but I had control over something just as valuable. The house. Our names were both on the mortgage, but I had been the one making every single payment. And when she walked out that door last night, she walked out of this house for good. I picked up my phone and called my lawyer. It was early, but he owed me a favor. He answered on the second ring. "Hey man, what's up? I need her name off my house," I said, my voice steady. "Today." A pause. Then a sigh. "This about what I think it is?" "Yeah." Another pause. Then he exhaled. "All right. I will get the paperwork started. But if her name is on the deed, it is going to take a fight to get it removed." I smirked. "Then let's fight." My phone buzzed again, another text from Ellen. He finally stopped calling. I chuckled. Good. That means he is scared. He should be. I tossed my phone onto the bed, stretched my arms, and let out a slow, steady breath. This was only the beginning. By the time I was done, they would have nothing left. She had not fought me when I kicked her out, but now that reality was setting in, I knew she would come crawling back. And I was going to make damn sure that never happened. I grabbed my phone and called my lawyer. He picked up on the second ring. Morning. Hey, I said, my voice steady. Too steady. I need to change the locks on my house, and I need to file for divorce. Today. He let out a low whistle. That bad. I exhaled sharply. Worse. He did not ask any more questions. I will send you the paperwork, he said. By the time I got off the phone, I felt lighter. Not good. I was not sure I would feel good for a long time, but better. One by one, I was taking back control. By noon, Ellen called me again, her voice buzzing with barely contained amusement. Mike is losing his shit, she said, laughing. I have not seen him this panicked since he forgot our anniversary and tried to cover it up with gas station flowers. I smirked. Good. He wants to meet, she continued. Wants to talk things out. I leaned back in my chair, considering that. Are you going to? She let out a dry laugh. Hell no. Let him stew. Good, I said again. I already knew what was happening. Mike was scrambling. He had spent his whole life getting away with things, lying his way out of trouble. But this was bigger than anything he could fix with a smooth apology and a fake promise to do better. He had lost his wife. He had lost his reputation. And soon, he was going to lose a hell of a lot more. Because I was not done yet. Not by a long shot. I hung up with Ellen and checked my messages. One caught my eye immediately. It was from her. Can we please talk? I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed 2 words. Too late. Then I blocked her number. She had made her choice. Now, she was going to live with it. For the first time since this nightmare started, I smiled. Because I was winning. And I was not stopping until they had nothing left.